The global powder keg, Iran, Israel, and the New World Alliance. For decades, the Middle East has been a hotbed of conflict, but in 2025, the world finds itself on the edge of a far more dangerous and unpredictable confrontation. One that doesn't just involve Israel and Iran, but a growing list of powerful allies, old enemies, and new fault lines across the globe. As missiles fly and threats escalate, we're witnessing the birth of a new geopolitical axis, stretching from Tehran to Moscow, Pyongyang, and even Islamabad. Meanwhile, the UK and the USA find themselves navigating an increasingly fragile global order they once dominated. This is not just a regional conflict. This is a global chessboard being reset. Iran and Israel. The flashpoint. Tensions between Iran and Israel are not new, but the past year has brought them to an entirely different level. Iran's nuclear program, long suspected of aiming toward weapons development, has pushed forward with unprecedented boldness. Enriched uranium levels have surpassed 80%, dangerously close to weapons-grade material. Israel, which sees a nuclear-armed Iran as an existential threat, has not waited for diplomacy to fail. In April 2025, Israel launched a coordinated airstrike on Iranian military and nuclear infrastructure, an operation known as Rising Lion. Using stealth fighters and precision munitions, Israel struck deep into Iranian territory, targeting sites in Natanz, Isfahan, and near Tehran. Iran retaliated with ballistic missile launches toward Israeli air bases and reportedly cyberattacks on critical Israeli infrastructure, temporarily crippling water and electrical systems. This isn't just tit for tat. These are acts of war, and both nations now operate on a war footing. Russia, Iran's most strategic partner. Russia has emerged as Iran's most vocal and resourceful ally. With its own global standing diminished after the Ukraine conflict, Moscow has found a valuable partner in Tehran. In recent months, Russia has supplied Iran with advanced air defense systems and satellite technology to counter Israeli air raids. In return, Iran has provided Russia with hundreds of Shahed series drones, many of which have been used in Ukraine. But their partnership goes beyond weapons. Russia and Iran are actively coordinating in global energy markets. By undercutting Western oil prices and shifting trade routes to Asia, they're striking at the economic foundations of US and UK influence. Moscow has also warned that any NATO intervention against Iran could trigger regional consequences, a barely veiled threat suggesting possible escalation beyond the Middle East. North Korea, the unlikely ally. While North Korea is geographically distant from the Middle East, it is ideologically and strategically aligned with Iran. Pyongyang has been quietly supplying Iran with missile technology and materials to bypass international sanctions. In exchange, Iran has reportedly helped North Korea with cyber warfare capabilities, allowing both regimes to wreak havoc on Western financial and defense systems. In May 2025, a leaked intelligence report from South Korea's defense ministry revealed joint missile testing simulations conducted by Iranian and North Korean engineers. The missile designs bore eerie similarities to the ones used in recent Iranian launches against Israeli positions. North Korea's motivations are clear: weakening US influence wherever possible, creating instability to deflect from its own domestic crises, and securing alliances that keep the global order off balance. Pakistan. Walking a fine line. Pakistan's position in this alliance is more complex and more dangerous. Officially, Islamabad calls for peace and restraint, but behind the scenes, its relationship with Iran is evolving. There are reports of Pakistani military advisors helping Iran reinforce its southwestern border defenses. Additionally, intelligence sharing channels have been revived between the two nations, particularly after the US withdrawal from Afghanistan, which left a vacuum both countries are keen to fill. However, Pakistan's dual role, maintaining strategic partnerships with both China and the Gulf states, puts it in a tight spot. Open support for Iran could alienate Riyadh and Abu Dhabi, but remaining neutral could jeopardize its access to Iranian gas and trade routes. Adding to this complexity, militant groups operating along the Iran-Pakistan border have seen a surge in activity, and many analysts believe this is being used as a proxy war front to test weapons and tactics. The United States, a strategic dilemma. The United States finds itself in unfamiliar territory. Once the undisputed global enforcer, Washington now faces multiple crises on different continents, with stretched resources and eroded international trust. The Biden administration has condemned Israeli airstrikes as unilateral escalations, while also reaffirming its commitment to Israel's defense. This dual approach has satisfied neither side. U.S. naval forces have been deployed in the Gulf, and carrier strike groups now patrol the Strait of Hormuz in anticipation of further Iranian retaliation. However, the U.S. is hesitant to commit ground troops or launch strikes of its own, fearing a broader war that would engulf the region and drag in Russia. Domestically, America is fractured. Public support for another Middle East intervention is low, and economic challenges at home, rising inflation, energy shortages, and a looming election have made aggressive foreign policy risky. But make no mistake, if Iran crosses certain red lines, especially with its nuclear program, the U.S. is prepared to act. The United Kingdom, in search of purpose. The U.K. too finds itself at a crossroads. Long seen as America's closest ally, it now appears more hesitant, more cautious. Prime Minister Jameson Whitlock has called for strategic restraint and multilateral solutions, but has also increased military support to Israel and reactivated RAF surveillance missions over the Mediterranean. At home, the UK is still reeling from post-Brexit economic struggles and a rising wave of political populism. Yet it remains committed to NATO and the Western Alliance. Interestingly, MI6 has been more vocal in recent months, issuing stark warnings about Iran's cyber activities and espionage networks spreading across Europe. British intelligence believes Tehran is laying the groundwork for asymmetric warfare, not just through missiles and drones, but through financial sabotage, cyber terrorism, and influence operations. The risk of a global escalation. What makes this conflict so volatile is the number of actors involved and how interconnected they are. Israel may be fighting Iran, but behind Iran stand Russia, North Korea, and increasingly Pakistan. Behind Israel stands the US and the UK, with European nations cautiously monitoring developments from the sidelines. In just the past month, Russia held joint naval drills with Iran in the Arabian Sea. North Korea tested a new ballistic missile with a range capable of reaching US Pacific bases. Pakistan quietly inked a natural gas corridor deal with Iran, bypassing Western sanctions. Conclusion: the world at a tipping point. This is no longer just about two countries locked in ideological warfare. It's about alliances, resources, ideology, and global power. Iran and Israel are the matchsticks, but the fire could spread far and wide, from Moscow to Washington, from Pyongyang to London. The question now is not whether conflict will escalate, it already has. The question is, how far will it go? And who will stop it if anyone still can? This isn't just about war, it's about the future of global order, and whether the balance of power that's lasted since World War II is about to collapse.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this historical tale, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Trendy Tale for more amazing stories from the past. And be sure to hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. See you in the next video.